Greg Barak is the co-founder and North American editor of the Journal of White Collar and Corporate Crime and emeritus professor of criminology and criminal justice at Eastern Michigan University. He is the author and editor of 20 books on crime, justice, media, violence, criminal law, homelessness, and human rights. And we have some breaking news. He was originally going to come on to talk about his new book, Criminology on Trump. But something more, well, not more important, but something pretty bad happened that kind of makes sense in light of what I was just talking about. Welcome, Greg Barak. Okay, Professor Barak, tell us the type of corporate censorship that you're now experiencing.
As part of the digital media campaign that I launched from the UK on Friday, some 5 days before the publication of Criminology on Trump tomorrow, I learned earlier today that a podcast, a YouTube video, and some other material were not being distributed on Facebook outside the United Kingdom. It seems that there's a relationship, an advertising marketing agreement, which prohibits a country from distributing this kind of what they call political and social information unless the company has officers registered in the country. So this material is going out on Twitter, LinkedIn, and other social media, and it's going out, or was supposed to be going out, on Facebook, but it is only being distributed on Facebook in the United Kingdom because the company that is doing this work for me is licensed in the United Kingdom.
So let me, in defense, let me play the devil's advocate.
Right.
And Mark Zuckerberg is the devil. There is a belief that there has been foreign interference in American elections. Russian oligarchs live in London. So is it possible that Facebook is cracking down on Russian oligarchs interfering in our elections? That would be the excuse Sheryl Sandberg would lean into.
That's my understanding precisely of their explanation. I think they need to be distinguishing between Russian oligarchs and Native American who's working here in the United States and has written a book without leaving the United States.
Right. Does that speak to more of just how big Facebook is and why it needs to be broken up? You cannot, for example, let me give you an example. Believe it or not, I years ago had a Facebook page, like a fan page that people set up, and I'm not a lot of fans. I know this is hard to believe on the Facebook page. One day it just disappeared. I was the owner of it and it disappeared. And I even put money into it. I bought some advertising. This was like during Obama's first term or second term. One day it just disappears. I write to Amazon. There's no appeal process. Nobody gets back to me. Could not hear back. It's impossible for them to answer to their 2 billion customers. They're too big to answer to their and so I just ate it. I just took it. The answer is we need a Justice Department that is going to break Facebook up into 1,000 tinier pieces, right?
Well, I would not resist the breakup of monopolies of any kind, Facebook included. It's possible that Facebook could be regulated, and I don't mean internally, externally, but that isn't something that I am an expert about. But with respect to Facebook, there's another issue that it's not what it once was, in the sense that people under 40 don't really use Facebook. It's for the older generation.
I call it
So
the
I'm not-
obituaries.
What's
Right
that?
now, I call Facebook the obituaries.
Okay,
When I go to Facebook, I go, who's sick, who's dying?
fair enough. I mean, it is a family affair, I guess.
Yeah. So you think it should be regulated? Can something that big ever be regulated? Don't they just capture the regulators?
Well, as someone who has written a book called Theft of a Nation, Wall Street Looting and Federal Regulatory Colluding, certainly Wall Street had captured the Department of Justice and the SEC and other regulatory agencies, because 10,000 criminals and not one was charged with security fraud. So they were captured. I still believe they could be regulated and controlled if you put in the dollars into the regulatory agencies and gave them the amount of money. Let me give you an illustration. If we look at financial crime, we look at corporate crime, we look at white collar crime, that costs us about $3 trillion a year. If we add up all the street and ordinary crime, that comes to about $1 trillion a year. We have 700,000 agents of law enforcement intervening in that criminality in the street. By contrast, with respect to the 3 trillion, we have less than 1,000 persons going after those criminals. And every time it's brought up that we need more money for the IRS, there's resistance and pushback. So, we are underfunded for regulatory agencies. That's not by chance, of course.
Right. We are talking with Greg Barak, and he has a new book out. How many of you read? This one is called Criminology on Trump. How many? You've written dozens of books, right?
Well, I've written 10 and I've edited 10 to be precise. Let
me ask you a question. I agree with everything you stand for, and I can't wait for you to come back and talk about Trump and the book. Let me propose a new way of thinking for all of us. We fetishize the New Deal as Democrats, don't we?
We fetishize the New Deal, yes.
Right?
Okay.
That big government with all its flaws, the administrative state with all its flaws, is still better than states' rights. Like leaving it up, if you leave it up to the rubes in smaller states and municipalities, corruption, racism, xenophobia will take charge. We need a big administrative state in Washington, D.C., teaching Americans how to behave. That's a kind of paternalistic view of government, which I subscribe to. I think people in Washington know better, the same way professors and teachers and doctors know better than ordinary Americans, for the most part.
For the most part, I agree with you, but I think we need to teach that big government how it needs to behave. And we need to rearrange the political and economic arrangements in which they operate. It is much more a structural problem than a problem of agency or individuals doing the right or wrong thing. Individuals are doing what your guest that I saw from a previous show said. It's about money, money, and money.
Right.
And that's really what's operating our social and political and economic policy today.
Right. And so we're on the brink of cataclysmic climate change and the end of the republic as we know it.
Yes.
Maybe the answer is for New Deal Democrats to embrace states' rights, that we break up not just corporations, the big corporations, because we also break up big government and revert back to local. Chuck Schumer's idiot daughter, who graduated from Harvard Law School, is a Democrat, fancies herself a liberal, and she's a lobbyist for Amazon. Okay, she's a waste of a human being. A waste of a Harvard Law School degree is already a waste of an education. And
There's a lot of wasted Harvard educations that are members of the United States Senate. Yeah.
Right, including Chuck Schumer is a waste of a human being and the waste of everything. So having it all centralized in Washington, D.C. creates a bubble of mischief. And maybe we need to fight the same fight that the Republicans fight, and that is locally, states' rights. That would mean Jessica Schumer would have to move to North or South Dakota and deal with, the Democrats with their elite degrees would have to go live with all the people they have contempt for. But that's the only way we're going to win this thing. Staying in Washington, New York, or Hollywood and dictating our morals and mores to the flyover people, it doesn't cut it anymore. And I think it's really a matter of doing what Grover Norquist, take a wrecking ball to corporate America, so you don't need these big agencies to regulate these behemoths. That's how you get rid of the revolving door. Everything has to get smaller. Smaller is better.
Smaller may be better. I mean, sustainable is better. It depends if you're large or big is really working to accumulate capital or to, accumulate survival. But to your point I agree with you that the struggle that the Democrats need to fight is a local one. We have 26 states that are, under siege at the moment from the Republicans, and their taking charge isn't going to, do us any good, whether those large corporations remain standing or broken up. But I do agree with you that the Democrats need to locally fight for every office that the Republicans are trying to take control of for Donald.
Right. Here's what I want to do, Professor. Okay. I would like you to keep coming back because you've written on everything I care about. These are the titles of your books. Give Me Shelter, A Social History of Homelessness in Contemporary America. Theft of a Nation, Wall Street Looting and Federal Regulatory Colluding. Unchecked Corporate Power, Why the Crimes of I'm laughing because I need to have you on all the time.
If I could get comfortable with this setting, I'd like to be a partner. Sure.
Right. Unchecked Corporate Power, Why the Crimes of Multinational Corporations are routinized away and what we can do about it. And your newest book is Criminology on Trump. Go to gregbarak.com, GREGGBARAK.com to purchase the book. It's published by Routledge. Is that
right?
Right.
You can go to Routledge, Taylor and Francis. You can go to Amazon.com. I mean, speaking of Amazon, we're trending. The book's published tomorrow, and books soon to be published. We're trending #1. So Amazon is, a vehicle for me to get out my message at the moment.
Right. We don't trash Amazon on this show. Did we say anything bad about Amazon?
I don't think so. I didn't hear it. I didn't hear anything. We all agree that they're a criminal enterprise. So,
Right. Oh, okay. So we only have 5 minutes left. Let's give a preview of the book and your next appearance on the show. Everybody should go buy the Criminology of Donald Trump.
All right. Well, in the few minutes that we have, let me tell your audience why my book is different than the thousands of the other books that have been written on Trump. To begin with, I've written a criminal biography of Donald Trump and the Presidency, unlike any other book, whether it's written by critics, analysts, journalists, or family members. Namely, I've examined Donald Trump through the lens of criminology. What does that mean? It means that I've given Trump his rightful place in the history, or in the U.S. political history, of lawlessness, crime, and corruption. I mean, so this is what you can look forward to. I presented a case study in Law and Lawlessness, Justice, and the Impunity of the Powerful White-Collar Criminals in America. And thirdly, from the perspective of selective enforcement and differential application of the law, I've provided an investigation into a lifetime of fraud and corruption as exhibited by Trump, some of his family members, and close associates.
Selective, what was the term? Selective?
Selective enforcement and differential application of the law. That's the framework in which we all should examine everyday crime, whether it's civil, criminal, whether it's in district court, whether we're dealing with the Supreme Court. It's all about selective enforcement and differential application.
Wow. Meaning, if I'm walking through the streets of New York and I'm white and I jaywalk, the cops don't stop me. But
in part, that's true. They may stop you thinking that you're about to get into trouble. So you might be stopped. But I really wasn't talking so much about the racial discrimination and the racism, as much as I was talking about rich people don't hold up 7-Elevens and poor people don't price fix. For one, you can do 40 years, and for the other, you can get a bonus.
Wow. All right. Greg Barak, his new book, and I got to get you back on as soon as possible.
I'm available.
Criminology on Trump. It is already trending on Amazon, and Facebook is trying to silence it. So
indirectly, yes, that's true.
I'm gonna call you tomorrow, and we'll get you back as soon as possible.
Thank you, Dutch.
Thank you, Greg.
Appreciate it, David.
You.
Bye-bye.